Sitting is resumed. It's time for questions to the Minister for Communities. Questions 1 and 15 are withdrawn. I call Paula Bradshaw. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The maintenance of housing executive properties is an operational matter for the Housing Executive to address. The Housing Executive response contracts have quality level standards and are subject to regular post-work inspections, which also assess the quality of the work. Where issues of quality are found, either from these inspections or through other means, they are raised with the contractor or the Housing Executive's direct labour organisation to remedy. This is monitored through the monthly contract performance meetings. Where quality issues have been raised, the Housing Executive holds the payment until the works have been completed to the satisfactory standard. If issues with quality persist, the Housing Executive holds escalation meetings with the contractor and improvement plans put in place and monitored until standards have been met.
Ms Bradshaw.
Thank you, Minister. I appreciate it as an operational matter, but it is one that I hear from in my constituency office very regularly, and I suppose the issue is that they feel that there's the substandard work, but also that their complaints are not dealt with properly. And I'm just wondering what conversation you have with the Housing Executive around better support for those residents who feel it's substandard work. Thank you.
Well, I regularly meet with the Housing Executive, and this is an issue that I'm certainly happy to raise. I'm sure that members across the House will have faced issues like these with those that are unhappy with work that has been provided or the time that takes. If she has some specific examples, I'd be more than happy to raise that.
Dan Forsyth.
Minister for his answer so far. Does the Minister agree that borrowing powers for the Northern Ireland Housing Executive are a key element for them delivering?
Sir.
Well, absolutely, this is an issue as we deal with the backlog, which we now know is over £10 billion worth of investment that is required to deal with maintenance backlog, routine investment and a programme of retrofit. And that's why it is so important that we get that confirmation that the Housing Executive is able to borrow on the same basis as other housing providers in government elsewhere within the United Kingdom, for example, in councils. This is something that I now believe that I have executive support for, if recent conversations are anything to go by. I have engaged with the Finance Minister on this. Obviously, the Department of Finance is responsible for progressing the negotiations with Treasury, but I'm hopeful that we can get a resolution to this issue, that we can get the confirmation that we've been looking for a long time, so that we can borrow against our assets, not just so that we can build more homes, but importantly, we can do that retrofitting and maintenance and repair work that is so badly required.
I call Andy Allen.
And I appreciate the Minister's already alluded to the fact that most of this is an operational matter for the Housing Executive, but can the Minister maybe perhaps advise if he's had any engagement with the Housing Executive on their cavity wall installation plan in terms of providing funding for that? And if the Speaker will indulge me, maybe just to encourage members, if they've got time between now and 3 o'clock, NEA are in the Great Hall taking photos to mark Fuel Poverty Awareness Day tomorrow, so I'd encourage members to engage with them. Minister.
Well, this is an important issue. In fact, it was the subject of a debate that I raised in this House back in early 2017. So it is hugely important because we want to make sure that people can live in warm and comfortable homes, and insulation plays a really important role in that. It will be part of my conversations with the Housing Executive. It is part of that wider retrofit plan as well, to make sure that we have more energy efficient homes. And again, it speaks to the fact that we need to see that change in borrowing powers for the Housing Executive.
Dan Dodds. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Libraries NI, in line with their long-term estates development strategy, have proposed refreshing and modernising library facilities in Banbridge. As an initial step, with the support of £115,000 of capital funding from my department, Libraries NI have recently acquired a potential development site from Armagh City, Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council. This site is situated adjacent to the existing library facility. Libraries NI will shortly begin the process of drafting a supporting business case for the replacement library project, and this will in due course be submitted to my department for consideration. In the meantime, library services will continue to be delivered from the current location in the town. Notwithstanding the budgetary constraints in 24-25, my department has provided Libraries NI with just over £4.7 million in capital funding to progress committed projects. I am mindful of the importance and value of our public library network, which provides safe, welcome and inclusive spaces for people to read, work, study and access information and services.
Mrs Dodds.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for your response. You will know the importance of the library in my local town, and it is good to hear that work is progressing and the site has been acquired. Do you have a timescale that you can narrow down on for the progression of this project? And perhaps you would like to come to see the library in Banbridge and see the very, very good work within the local community for some people, young students and even those who are isolated and elderly.
Mr Speaker, I'd be more than happy to come to Banbridge to see what it is that the library provides and, importantly, what they're not currently able to provide because of the lack of additional facilities. I can assure the member that I want to see this progressed as quickly as possible. I know that this is of concern to the member who has raised this with me previously, and I will do everything I can to progress as quickly as possible with that, because her colleague, Deborah Erskine, has also raised with me the importance of a library in her constituency, and I'm glad that we're now progressing with that and with the business case, and I hope to be in the same position with Banbridge Library as well, and libraries right across Northern Ireland.
Nick Matheson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for the assurance that he's committed to developing libraries all across Northern Ireland. So on that basis, could you provide an update on the redevelopment of the library in Newton Ards, and specifically what the engagement with Ards and North Down Borough Council has been, who remain a key partner to ensure that project can be delivered?
Minister.
Yes, well, the redevelopment of Newton Ards Library is a key priority for Libraries NI. I'm grateful to Michelle McIlveen for having taken me out to see. I have to say, for a town the size of Newton Ards, very poor library facilities in terms of the space that is actually available. I'm pleased to confirm that they have submitted an updated business case to the department supporting the proposed redevelopment. Of course, there's very close working that is going on with the council because of the shared facilities and shared space there, and I look forward to working with Libraries NI and with Ards and North Down Borough Council to make sure that is progressed, because quite frankly Newton Ards deserves better than the space that it currently has.
Cheryl Brownlee. Minister.
Mr Speaker, depending on individual circumstances, carers may have access to a range of support in the social security system. Carers allowance is the main benefit for unpaid carers, which provides a measure of financial support to those unable to work full-time because of caring responsibilities. My department will shortly be bringing forward legislation to reform the earnings limit in carers allowance from April 2025. This will enable carers to earn more money from paid work while still retaining entitlement to the benefit. Those carers on a low income may be able to access additional financial support through income-related benefits such as universal credit, which also include extra premiums and elements for caring. In addition, my departments Make the Call service can carry out an entitlement check to ensure a carer is accessing all the benefits, supports and services available to them. Recommendations relating to additional support for carers were made in the Independent Advisory Panel's report into the future of welfare mitigations that was published in October 2022.
Ms Brownlee.
And thank you to the Minister. I certainly welcome that. You will know the cliff edge approach which is going on within the caring sector and how difficult it is for people trying to care and also trying to work and gain employment. So, Minister, could you detail exactly what the department will do to ensure that every carer or every potential carer, will this message be communicated to them to ensure that they're receiving the support that they will be entitled to?
Minister.
Yes, absolutely, and I thank the member for raising the question, because it gives me an opportunity to place on record my thanks to all of those carers right across Northern Ireland who do fantastic work caring for others, work that would otherwise fall on the public purse to pay for. They take huge pressure off public resources, and I want to make sure that I can do everything that I can within the resources that are available to me to make sure that we properly acknowledge and support carers in Northern Ireland.
Alderman Gildernew.
Can the Minister confirm when he will bring forward legislation to extend the vital benefit cap mitigations post-March 2025?
Minister.
Well, I hope to be able to do that in a matter of weeks. The information will be with the Executive in, I hope, the coming hours. It will then for the Executive to decide what comes next, but I believe there will be a consensus on that, but that will be with Executive colleagues very soon with recommendations that I hope they take on board.
Patsy Malone.
Colleagues, Moeha Slishan out of Fosta. Can I ask the Minister, a carers allowance recognition payment was recommended by the independent review of welfare mitigations. Does the Minister intend to introduce it?
Minister.
So the annual cost of a carers recognition payment is set out in the independent review of welfare mitigations would be in the region of £25 million. That is an estimate which my officials have been working to update. I will be in the position very soon to share those updated costs with Executive colleagues, but any future mitigation package for carers and others, including those would need to be agreed by the Executive and assessed in the current financial climate to make sure that it is sustainable over the coming years as well.
Ciara Ferguson.
Number 5.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the sample size for the Renters' Voice survey was low, and it may not be representative of all private rented sector tenants. Having said that, I entirely understand the negative impacts that both the fear of eviction and being evicted can have on individuals and families living in the private rented sector. That is one reason why I am committed to striking a balance through progressing a programme of private rented sector reform and strike that balance between the rights and responsibilities of tenants and landlords. And this reform programme will address issues around quality, affordability and security of tenure. And I will take forward actions that explicitly address some of the particular concerns raised by the respondents to the Renters' Voice survey. And these include improving fire and electrical safety, restricting the frequency of rent increases and introducing much longer notice to quit periods. But the key to meeting our housing challenges is reflected in the number one ask of Renters' Voice is increasing the supply of social and affordable housing. And as I have said many times before in this Assembly, increasing housing supply is my top priority, but it cannot be achieved by my department alone. And that's why a housing supply strategy subject to Executive endorsement will represent a significant step towards gaining the commitment and prioritisation needed from government to meet our supply challenges.
Ms Ferguson.
Minister for his answer thus far. Minister, in relation to the survey, 62% of the respondents says that they delayed reporting necessary repairs to their landlord or letting agent due to fear of being evicted, and 52% ultimately not reporting at all. And I'm sure each member here have experience of that with constituents. Are you therefore willing to legislate urgently to end no-fault evictions, to prevent homelessness and provide renters with much-needed security within their current tenure?
Well, I understand the concerns that the member is raising, and that's why I am taking forward work with the reforms that were voted on in this Assembly in the Private Tenancies Act 2022. There is a duty on me to bring those into place in the first instance, and I believe that these will greatly increase security of tenure for individuals and for their families in the private rented sector. So we are in the process of progressing with that. And if the House decides that further action is needed, that will, of course, be considered.
David Brooks.
The Minister for his answers so far and for his visit to Park Avenue and Dundonald earlier today. Could I ask, as a private renter myself, I can understand the anxiety it would cause to renters as well, but could I ask him for his assessment of the no-fault eviction ban that's been in place in Scotland?
Minister.
Well, I think that the member is right to raise the issue of Scotland, because I think what they have tried to do there is get a no-fault eviction ban in theory, but in practice it's something very, very different. because what that has meant is that there are so many exemptions. In fact, there are 18 exemptions, grounds on which a landlord can utilise to apply for an eviction order. And the notice period for an eviction depends on the application ground and the length of a tenancy. So if the landlord intends to sell the property, or if he wants to refurbish it, if he wants to live in it himself, if a family member wants to live in it, if he intends to let the property for non-residential purpose, if he wants to let the property required for a religious worker, if the tenant has a criminal conviction, if the tenant is no longer occupying the property, if there's a breach of agreement, if there's engagement in antisocial behaviour, and many, many more. So I think we need to be careful. The more stringent restrictions that we put on sometimes then require additional exemptions, which can open it all up again. What I'm trying to do is make sure we get that balance right between the rights and responsibilities for tenants and for landlords, and in doing so, ensure there is that supply of housing.
Kelly Armstrong.
Speaker, and Minister, congratulations on keeping your voice so far, because we can tell that you have a sore throat. I hope you get better soon. Minister, delighted to hear your response with regards to the no-fault evictions, because the Scottish model does leave a lot to be desired. But in order to bring forward no-fault evictions, we need that Part 2 of the Private Tenancies Act to come forward. Have you any timescales on when you'll be bringing that?
I don't have timescales at this time, Mr. Speaker, because I hope she will understand that my limited resources in terms of the staff that I have in the department are fully focused on this piece of work, and it will be a challenge to get completed what has already been agreed by this Assembly. However, we are determined to keep going and make sure that we have those changes in place by the end of this mandate.
Mark Durkan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for his answers thus far. He's been asked about renters' voice. We've also heard an assessment of the Minister's voice. Mine would be that maybe he's been shouting a bit too much in here. Could the Minister give more specific details on the measures that he will be bringing forward to increase security of tenure for private renters? And 2 years ago, when this Assembly voted for the Private Tenancies Bill, we were promised by the Minister of the time that there would be further legislation coming, and coming soon. Is there any other legislation in gestation to aid private renters?
Well, the member will be aware, first of all, of the legislation and the regulation that I am progressing through this place. In fact, I think it was just last week I'd taken through some of the additional regulations that came about as a result of the Act from 2022. But I can confirm to him that we will introduce longer notice to quits period as set out by Section 11 of that Act, which was mandated by the Assembly. And the longest notice period that a landlord must give a tenant are 8 weeks if the tenancy has not been in existence for more than 12 months, 4 months if the tenancy has not been in existence for more than 12 months, but not for more than 3 years, 6 months if the tenancy has been in existence for more than 3 years, but not more than 8 years, and 7 months if the tenancy has been in existence for more than 8 years.
Paul Freak.
6.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the next meeting of the United States Northern Ireland Cultural Working Group will be hosted by Historic Royal Palaces at Hillsborough Castle on yesterday, on Monday the 25th of November. National Museums Northern Ireland have been invited to this meeting to update the group on their exhibitions and programming plans for 25-26 to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the United States. This meeting will build on the relationships I established with key institutions during my recent visit to the United States. I have since written to these organisations again, including the America 250 Commission, the National Archives, the Library of Congress, the Smithsonian Institute and the White House Historical Association, welcoming the opportunity to explore collaborative projects that will promote the unique historical links that exist between Northern Ireland and the United States. To that end, I have asked my officials to extend an invite to the Interim Executive Director of the US Semi-Quincentennial Commission and Executive Vice President of America 250 to attend a future meeting of the group and the working group are continuing to develop a programme with US partners to promote events in Northern Ireland and North America leading up to the 250th anniversary commemorations.
Mr. Frew.
I thank the Minister for his answer. Given the significant history with the US and even my own constituency of North Antrim, how will my constituency benefit from this link?
Well, I think there's a number of ways in which the member's constituency will benefit. First of all, we have been highlighting those who left these shores to go to the United States and whose descendants ascended to the highest office in the land, and he will be aware of Chester A. Arthur in his own constituency, whose father was born in Collybackie, and the homestead remains there to this day. So I hope that we will be able to highlight the presidents that have come from here, including Andrew Jackson in my own constituency as well. Of course, there are many others, 17 others, who have Northern Ireland connections. But I think what this also does is help to put Northern Ireland firmly on the radar, increasing Northern Ireland's exposure within the United States, and that is important. And I think for North Antrim there are a number of benefits that can come from that, and tourism is one of them. North Antrim already being a great draw for tourists with such fantastic attractions like the Giant's Causeway and Carrick-Reid Rope Bridge, both of which I used to work at many years ago. But I want to see more visitors, more people know about North Antrim and other constituencies as well. I think there's also work to be done in relation to genealogy, and I think that can have a pull and bring more people over. So all of this work is about raising the profile of Northern Ireland, telling people our story, what we have done and what we still have to do.
Michelle Guy.
And thank you to the Minister and Fair Play for fronting up today when you're not feeling so well. Can I ask the Minister, he's mentioned already some of the groups who are involved in the cultural working group. Can you give us an idea of all the groups who are involved in that working group and how they were selected?
Sure. So within the group we have officials from the Department for Communities, both within Culture Division and PRONI, the Executive Office, the Northern Ireland Bureau, the Ulster Scots Agency, the North-South Ministerial Council, Invest NI, Tourism Ireland, the US Consulate and Historic Royal Palaces, and they were all selected because of the role that each of them have to play in telling the story of Northern Ireland and some of the existing connections that they already have with the United States.
Matthew O'Toole.
Minister, I am all in favour of this agenda. I think it's an important one, even if a good Ulster Scots quality of parsimony was not on display in terms of the cost of your visit to the United States, I have to say. But let me ask the question. Some of the divisions we think about, Ulster Scots versus Irish, were actually utterly irrelevant in the 18th century and are historically, in a sense, obsolete. And indeed, all this took place before Ireland was partitioned. So to that end, can I ask, and of course many of those Ulster Scots migrants would have been Irish speakers, so some of these identities that we think of now as opposing one another, those oppositions didn't exist in the 18th century. To that end, can I ask whether he will use this Ulster Scots or the USNI working group to press for reform and an end to this ridiculous ETA scheme the UK government is imposing, not just on Northern Ireland, but on the island of Ireland, which will limit the ability of US tourists who are interested in Ulster Scots lineage to arrive in Dublin and then travel to Antrim and Omagh and all those places.
Call the Minister at this point.
Well, look, can I thank the member, because he obviously knows that I'm struggling with my voice, and he decided to talk to give me a break. So I am very grateful. Let me say this, Mr. Speaker. I did not mention the word division. I did not mention division or a difference. Those were words that the member has used. This isn't about opposition of one side against another. What I am trying to do, and what I will always proudly do, is stand up for Northern Ireland and promote Northern Ireland. And by the way, whether you identify as British, identify as Irish from the Unionist community or the Nationalist community, if you're from Northern Ireland, I'm standing up for you and I'm promoting this place, and I'll promote all 6 counties as well. That's what I'm about, and that's what I am doing. This isn't about pitting one side against the other. This isn't about Irish language versus Ulster Scots. this. Well, the member says that he knows this, but he spent the opening monologue there in his question saying all of that. So a bit of a mixed message from him here today. I'm about promoting Northern Ireland. I want to tell people in the United States who we are, what we've done, what we're about. That's what I will continue to do. He does make an important point. I want to make it as easy as possible for people to arrive in Northern Ireland and to be able to travel. And I think that that is something that needs to be taken into consideration. But he can be assured that I will do everything that I can to use the relationships that are being built for the benefit of everyone in Northern Ireland.
John Stewart.
Mr. Speaker, on the 21st of September 2023, my department announced the closure of the boiler replacement scheme due to budgetary constraints. Prior to the budget decision, the scheme had seen a significant decrease in both the number of inquiries and application forms received in the previous 2 financial years. It was therefore decided to consolidate resources into the Affordable Warmth Scheme. That Affordable Warmth Scheme is open to applications and has business case cover to run until March 2026. It includes providing grants for boilers and central heating systems. I have allocated an opening budget of £7.175 million for the scheme to cover £5.2 million of approvals carried forward and £1.975 for new approvals in this financial year. My department has undertaken an equality impact assessment on its budget, and the Department of Finance has confirmed the outcome of the October monitoring round, and my department is currently working through the process to determine allocations.
Mr. Stewart.
Speaker, I thank the Minister for his answer. And the Minister correctly referred to the success of the previous boiler replacement scheme. He also said just how important it would be to get a new scheme in place, which is there. But, Minister, you will know that many people are unable to avail of the scheme given the criteria for it. So does he agree with me that we need to help those in low incomes who are in danger of falling into fuel poverty? And what more can he do to extend that application?
Minister.
Well, look, that's absolutely right, and that's why any new scheme will be considered in terms of what has come before and the success of the scheme that is currently in place. Let me make it very, very clear. I want to do everything that I can to make it as easy as possible for people to live in warm and safe homes. That is why I will be bringing forward in the next number of weeks a consultation on a new fuel poverty strategy, which will outline options for the way forward as well. It is vitally important that we do more and that we invest earlier. As much as I want to be in a position to give out support for people to help heat their homes, I think it's more important that people's homes are well insulated in the first place, and that's a much better use of resource. And I'll do everything I can to make sure that we are helping those who are most in need.
Ryan Kingston.
Thank the Minister for his answers so far, and I hope it hasn't set back his throat recovery. Certainly hasn't reduced the fire in his belly, as we've heard. And as the Minister we heard earlier, tomorrow is Fuel Poverty Awareness Day across the UK, organised by National Energy Action. And can the Minister update us on the progress of the Northern Ireland Fuel Poverty Strategy?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I will shortly be launching within the next number of days a public consultation for the draft fuel poverty strategy to provide a long-term framework for reducing fuel poverty, recognising that this will have positive impacts on both mental and physical health, especially for the most vulnerable in our society. And the fuel poverty strategy proposes an ambitious vision of a warm, healthy home for everyone, underpinned by guiding principles of long-term sustainable solutions, a needs-based approach and collective and participative working. It will focus on making homes more energy efficient to address the root causes of fuel poverty and reduce the poor health outcomes associated with cold homes. It will also address how to support those living in or at risk of fuel poverty, improve consumer protection and include proposals for a new fuel poverty energy efficiency scheme.
Neil McAllister. About half a minute, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my department's review of the Executive's People and Place strategy has broadly concluded with the development of a draft strategic framework. This has been informed by the views expressed by stakeholders through a wide-ranging sectoral engagement exercise. and the draft strategic framework, which will align with the anti-poverty strategy, is currently undergoing a quality review exercise and will be provided for my consideration by the end of December 2024.
Move on to topical questions. I call Daniel McCrossan.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, the Housing Executive's comments this week in relation to the unprecedented and record-breaking levels of demand for emergency and temporary housing is truly of great concern. You've been in office for 10 months now. On your watch, it has gotten worse. What are you doing about it?
Minister.
I'll tell you what I'm doing about it, Mr. Speaker. I'm doing things that no minister has done before. I'm bringing in intermediate rent using financial transactions capital. I'm bringing in loans for move-on accommodation. I am working with housing associations to make sure that we deal with void properties. I have pushed more than anybody has ever pushed on housing executive revitalisation so we can improve the homes that we have and that we can build more homes. I'm bringing in more legislation to deal with antisocial behaviour. I'm looking at how we award points in Northern Ireland to make sure that those that most need in our homes are getting in there. I am bringing forward a housing supply strategy which will be with the Executive shortly, which will set up a cross-departmental route to dealing with this problem. And I have secured a commitment and a standalone housing outcome in the programme for government. So I believe actually that is a significant record in a short period of time of taking the steps needed to address this issue. Oh, and I've also got an additional £24 million for more social housing this year. I'm quite pleased with the work that we've been able to achieve in the last few months.
Mr. McCrossan.
Mr. Speaker, I apologise for rattling the Minister. It would be terrible if he was to lose his voice in the midst of the answer to that question. Over 18 million, Minister, has been spent on emergency and temporary accommodation in 23-24, again on your watch, including 6.5 million in Derry and Strabane District Council area, 6 million in the Belfast Council area. Does your department actually have a strategy to deal with this, or is it just expensive temporary sticking plasters?
Minister.
Utter rubbish from the member. Utter rubbish. I have outlined that. He asked me what I did. I've outlined the list of the things that I have done during my time in office. Well, he's shaking his head. Well, it's factual. That's absolutely what I have done. And I can assure the member that he is not rattling me at all. He is making me very excited because I have the opportunity to highlight the work that we are doing in this area. And look, it is a serious matter. And it has been my top priority since coming into office, and I'm really pleased that we have been able to start to make a difference. We will continue to do that. He mentions temporary accommodation, a huge amount of money that has had to be spent on that. I want to spend more of that on prevention, but we have a minister in this department who is looking at new and novel ways of tackling this issue. And yes, my voice may be a little bit weak, but the action that I have taken has been strong.
Declan McAleer.
I'd like to ask the Minister to outline any plans his department might have for investment in rural settlements.
Minister.
Well, my department invests considerable resources in delivering a wide range of services to the public throughout Northern Ireland in both rural and urban settings, and this is delivered through our arm's-length bodies. That includes ensuring the availability of good quality and affordable housing, the delivery of social security, child maintenance and pensions, supporting the voluntary and community sector, and a range of investments in the public realm, heritage, sport, arts, language, culture, and many more. My priority is to deliver real and lasting change for people right across Northern Ireland, whether that's in urban or rural settings, and I'll continue to do that in the time ahead.
Mr. McAleer.
I thank the Minister for his response. Minister, in relation to village renewal and regeneration, is his department minded to work with his counterparts in DERA to look at potentially at a future small settlement scheme?
Minister.
Will be aware of what we've been able to do in regards to small settlements through COVID-19 in collaboration with DERA. That is something that I'm keen to explore, to see what more we can do, and if the member has any specific suggestions about the type of issues that he thinks that we should be working on, I will of course be happy to hear from him.
Peter Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Minister has mentioned in some of his answers so far the anti-poverty strategy. Could I ask him for an update on progress on that and when he would see it completed?
Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to inform the member that good progress has been made. This is another example of where no action has been taken for far too long. This has been a requirement upon my and predecessor departments since 1998 to deliver this, and I am pleased to be able to inform the House that it is still my intention to make sure that we have the anti-poverty strategy before executive colleagues in January. And what's more, I want to make sure that that is a strategy that has buy-in, that other departments are signed up to. So currently the interdepartmental working group is meeting to make sure that the departments sign up to something that is actually sustainable and, importantly, actually makes a difference.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for your answers so far. Minister, is it possible that you could outline any broad themes that this House might expect to see in the anti-poverty strategy?
Minister.
Yes, well, there will be 3 pillars that the anti-poverty strategy will have. First of all, there are going to be the supports needed to prevent people getting into poverty. For those that find themselves in poverty, it's about making sure that they have the support that they need. And then thirdly, we also need to make sure that we are helping people to exit poverty. That's why this has to be a cross-departmental strategy, because it's not something that the Department for Communities can do alone. And what is one of the best ways in which we can prevent poverty and help people get out of poverty is making sure that people can get into work and that they can stay in work. Yes, we need to have a safety net for those that are unable to work, but what I want to see far more of is us breaking down the barriers for people gaining employment and staying in employment, because that is the sure way that we can help people to escape from poverty, and that's the approach that I'm taking in relation to this strategy.
Jan Forsyth.
I'm sure the Minister will agree with me that Northern Ireland punches well above its weight in terms of sporting achievement, and we strive to continue with this going forward. Can the Minister advise of any ongoing work or communications that are happening at the minute to maximise Northern Ireland's potential with the upcoming 2026 Commonwealth Games?
Sir.
Yes, absolutely, and I have had engagement in regards to the Commonwealth Games. I think it's great that they're coming back to the UK. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for us to showcase our amazing athletes who have always made us so proud, and we will continue to work closely with the Commonwealth Games, NI and wider sporting bodies in the lead up to this event. I was delighted that the member could join us at the Olympic celebration in the SSE Arena. That was a fantastic event for all involved, and the focus was rightly on our athletes, where the focus should always be, and I hope that we will have similar success in 2026.
Ms. Forsyth.
Mr. Speaker, and I really enjoyed that event in the SSE Arena, and I thank the Minister for hosting that. And following on from that Olympic success, as Minister for Sport, does he agree that the Ulster banner does include everyone in Northern Ireland?
Well, it'll not surprise the member to hear that I agree with what she has said. I have to say I believe that the campaign that we are currently hearing about is ill-advised at best. I was concerned to learn about the discussion and consideration of changing the flag. As we have seen at the Olympics, our athletes have always kept their focus on sport and were able to represent Northern Ireland, and politics wasn't made anything of. Unfortunately, I think politics has been dragged into this now. This was something I've not been consulted on. If I had been consulted on, I would have made it very clear that I do not think that we should be upsetting the status quo on this, but that we have had athletes that have been very happy to represent Northern Ireland at the Commonwealth Games. They should continue to be allowed to do so, and I think that it's best for everyone involved. This were just to be put to bed.
Philip McGuigan.
The initial gambling code of practice currently out for public consultation makes no reference to who is responsible for monitoring compliance with the code. Can I ask the Minister to confirm who will be responsible for this?
Well, I'm grateful to the member for raising this, and this is something I want to see in as soon as possible, because he'll be aware of the concerns that I have expressed in relation to this as well. That is not an issue that has come up directly in the conversation that I have had so far, but I'm very keen to hear the members' views on this, and we will take the views of others as well before we come to a final decision.
Mr. McGuigan.
Okay, I thank the Minister, and the APG related to gambling harm will certainly be making a response in relation to that. Further to my first question, Minister, the initial code of practice refers to the Betting, Gaming, Lotteries and Amusements Order of 1985. However, it seems no one has taken responsibility for the monitoring and compliance of this legislation or enforcement. So similarly, can I ask the Minister to confirm who is responsible for monitoring and compliance and enforcement of that legislation?
Minister.
I want to be able to give the member as accurate information as possible, so I will come back to him on that. But I think he's right to raise the issue because we absolutely need to make sure that the appropriate monitoring is in place.
Thank you.
And further to the millions of pounds for social housing that the Minister secured in the October monitoring round, can he update us on how many new social houses does he expect to be able to fund in this financial year?
Minister.
Yes, so we don't have an exact figure because this will change depending on the programmes that are actually taken forward. But current estimates are that the number of new builds will be approximately 1,350. But it is important to remember that my capital allocation meant that we started the year at 400. Significant progress has been made, but there is more to do.
Kingston.
Indeed, and that is very welcome progress, and I commend the Minister for it. And further, could he also update us on the progress and timescales for the housing supply strategy?
Minister.
Well, I hope to get executive approval for the housing supply strategy very soon, and I look forward to discussions with executive colleagues in relation to that. The housing supply strategy will not build houses, but what it will do is ensure that we have a whole government approach to house building, meaning that we tackle issues in planning and infrastructure and all of those things that are currently holding up our ability to build more homes. I welcome the engagement that I've had with other ministers to date. I hope that recent events have pushed this up the political agenda, that people understand the need to do something about this, to take real and meaningful action, because there are lots of things that we've been able to do in the department, lots more that we have to do, but we need all of government working together, quite simply, to make it as easy and as straightforward as possible to get building.
Robbie Butler.
I want to take the Minister just back into the Commonwealth Games, because I'm going to stay away from flags because I think you answered that one. In regard to the Commonwealth Games and your willingness to engage with the Scottish Parliament, could you outline to the House what your ambition would be for Northern Ireland's participation?
Minister.
Well, I can tell you what I hope our participation will mean: more medals for Northern Ireland, and I have faith and confidence in our athletes to deliver just that. In terms of engagement with the other devolved administrations and with Scotland, I look forward to doing that through the normal channels, but also to highlight what it is that we might be able to do to put the spotlight on Northern Ireland, and I look forward to continuing conversations that have already happened at an official level.
Mr. Butler.
Minister, for his answer, I'm going to give the Minister maybe a part of a solution. So some of the sports have been removed because it's now a compacted arrangement, but hockey is unfortunately missing out. Northern Ireland has some fantastic hockey pitches and facilities, particularly in my own constituency of Lagan Valley, with Snagarvey, South Antrim and Banbridge, named just a few. Could the Minister give a commitment to make that an offer to the Commonwealth Games group and maybe bring hockey as part of the Commonwealth Games in 2026 to Northern Ireland?
Sure.
Well, I'm well aware of the pedigree that Lagan Valley has in relation to hockey. Obviously, that will be a matter for the Commonwealth Games to decide which sports will be played. But let me say this: if there is any role that Northern Ireland can play, I'm happy to explore all of those options.
Jay Carroll.
Trip to the United States, can you confirm whether you met with the Director of European Affairs for the National Security Council, and if so, what was the meeting about?
Minister.
Yes, I can confirm that I met with her, and a number of issues were raised during that meeting about the work of my department and the wider political situation in Northern Ireland.
Carl. The Minister will publish the minutes of that meeting, and does he agree that the £40,000 spent on the trip to the US and Canada was public money well spent?
First of all, the cost was not within my control in terms of how these visits are booked. And I have said I recognise the concern around the figures, and I want to make sure that processes are in place so that the executive can continue to do its work, but at much better value to the taxpayer. Though I will say this, I do believe that it is important that we engage. I think that it is something that we have been poor at in the past. I think that there are a number of opportunities for Northern Ireland in terms of our economy, in terms of the cultural connections that we can build, in terms of everything that I have outlined in regards to the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But I am pleased to report that there have already been a number of further conversations in regard to investment in Northern Ireland, in regards to philanthropy, in regards to private sector involvement in sport and the arts. So there will be tangibles, there will be deliverables from this. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep an eye on the cost of these things and get best value for money. But I can tell you, I'm about promoting Northern Ireland, I'm about selling Northern Ireland, and I'm about making sure we get more investment and more people coming here to visit Northern Ireland.
That concludes questions to the Minister for Communities. Can I commend you, Minister, on persevering in difficult circumstances to make your voice heard.